So James is having halibut today. That
Just
is
for the halibut.
$27.46 worth of halibut that we got for free. So what a treat. Babaganoush with some kale and nasturtiums, some yellow flesh potatoes, and grilled zucchini. And if he's still peckish, then I put together a little bit of a bread and whatever sandwich plate, and tiramisu for dessert. I'm going to talk about rare objects. That got top of the stack. Then Blood and Money, Malignant, and Sleepless Unrest got the bottom of the stack. All right. Oh, and it looks like James has a whole lot of books he's wanting to talk about today.
Well, I wish
looks
I
like
didn't
JFK
have to talk
kind of
about
stuff.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly right. So
He'll talk about that after.
Listening to something like that. So JFK and the unspeakable, why he died and why it matters. Contract on America, the mafia murder of President John F. Kennedy. Wasn't just the mafia, but it's important to get that stuff revealed. And then ultimate sacrifice, John and Robert Kennedy, the plan for a coup in Cuba, and the murder of JFK. So outside of my, and lest we forget, JFK autopsie d'un crime d'État, an autopsy of a crime of state.
It's a blue jay who was making all that noise.
I think he's a little peckish there. Eh?
Well, I gave them peanuts that are the double peanuts. I've been breaking them in half for them. And so that I think it's a bit louder when they do the double. Because honestly, I think they drop half of it. I think they only eat the one. They crack open one part, they take that, and then they just, birds, you know.
Well, they leave it for a little later.
Maybe.
Come and pick it up off the ground. I've seen them doing it.
Oh, okay. So, rare objects. This is a horribly long drama that doesn't end up being a horrible story. It was directed, I saw at the end, it's directed and produced, and the screenplay was written in part by Katie Holmes. Like, she did a whole lot to do with this movie.
She's starring in it as well? Is that her?
Not
really?
100%. She's kind of co-starring.
Okay, she's in it though. Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That is so.
And maybe, she has a maybe, I wouldn't say she's starring in it. It's really about this other woman, but anyway, she has a semi-lead role. She's in there a lot. So, she really worked hard on this one. And I'm not into dramas. Normally this wouldn't get top of the stack. This one I found much more entertaining, Blood and Money. But I'm not really into dramas. So as I had to look at it and objectively and say, okay, well, I'm not into them, but a lot of people are, and if you are, this is certainly a better movie than this one. So it's got top of the stack. And it deals with some issues of mental illness and stuff like that. Anyway, but in a not too heavy way or anything like that. Blood and Money, Fight for Survival. So you see this guy, he's this old geezer, and he's having some health problems. And honestly, you're watching him and you're like, I don't really like this guy. He kills a doe. He's a hunter, right? And this is set in Maine in the winter, and it's beautiful, but you don't know where it is. They don't tell in the movie. It doesn't matter, right? I just read that in the credits. But and I didn't realize Maine was that beautiful, but I should have known. So anyway, this hunter, he kills this doe, and then he calls up somebody, and he's like, I just killed a doe without a tag, but I remember you saying that so-and-so didn't have a tag, or so-and-so had a tag and didn't have a doe, and so I can meet you and whatever. And so you're listening, and if you're anybody like me, you're like, you don't kill without a tag. You know, you can't do that. And if you think, oh gee, well, I see this doe now, I better shoot her, you know, you're not much of a hunter, because honestly, like, I see them all the time. So
you're not actually tracking them
no.
down as much.
No. They're just, I happen to come across them in my hikes. Anyway, one thing about him is he'd drive, and then he would, he wasn't quadding in
Well, that shouldn't
to
be
the
allowed.
woods or anything.
Quadding
That shouldn't be allowed.
on-
If you can't pack that, pack your kill out, take a bunch of buddies with you to do it,
Yeah.
you know? But if you can't pack it out, you shouldn't be getting it.
Yeah.
You can't be going in there quadding. Anyway,
Quadding shouldn't
in
be
the
allowed,
winter, I
but-
mean, if you have snowmobiles or something, that's a bit different. You're going on top of the snow, and presumably you're not wrecking anything. But
Quadding shouldn't be allowed off of your own property. Definitely not on public property.
no.
And
Definitely not on somebody else's. If you don't have permission, it should only be on your own, or like somewhere where you have permission. There could be, I don't know, some sort of quadding playground that somebody sets up for people where they go
Where they can
off
go
or
kill
whatever.
themselves.
You know, like
Yeah.
whatever. Anyway, that's a different issue. So
It is a different issue.
when we're watching this movie, you're like, I don't know if I really like this guy so much, but you get a lot of story about where he's coming from, like his issues. He's human. You get a lot of things that show you he's just a regular guy, really. He may not be exactly like you, but he's just human, whatever. He has issues with alcoholism that he's dealt with, right? Well, as much as a person could deal with it. And he has some things that has happened in his past that they were very stressful and whatever. Anyway, so he's out there. He's like, I'm gonna get that buck. You know, I've been wanting to get it, and he has this really nice. It's kind of like a custom RV unit ish. It's a good truck that he has with the setup, and so you can see this is very important to him. This is what he loves to do, going out hunting, and a lot of people really do. So he's going out there. He keeps talking about it to people. Oh, I haven't got the buck yet, or whatever. I'm gonna get him. You know, I'm gonna get him. So he's out there. He sees the buck. He gets his gun, and he misses. And he's and then he's trying to figure out. He knows whereabouts approximately he is, so he's trying to figure it out. And he's going along, and he sees some movement behind the trees, tan color. Oh yes, you know, what else could it be, right? It's winter, it's snow, and if you see tan moving behind the trees, so he shoots, and he gets it. And he goes out there, not a buck.
Yeah.
It was a woman. And so he doesn't know what to do. He's scared. He's like, oh man, I've just murdered somebody. And so he decides not to say anything. He gets out of there. And then he's buying some cigarettes later, and he realizes, oh no, like he smokes, right? So he was stressed out. He would have been smoking, and he realizes, I would have left the cigarette butt there. They will know I was there. So he goes back, and he gets his cigarette butt, and he's like, oh, phew. And so he looks down beside this woman. In the meantime, he's noticed that it's been on the news. There's a couple people that they know of, and there's 5 people involved, but they have the identities of 2 of them up on the TV screen. They're robbers. They've robbed. And so he goes back, and he looks at her, and he's like, oh yeah. So she was one of the robbers, and he sees she has a big duffel bag beside her. He opens up, sure enough, full of money. Wow, right? So he picks up the bag, he starts walking away, and I mean, just in the nick of time, right? He comes across a fellow hunter that he knows, and and then like he notices that the other robbers have showed up to try to get the money, right? And so he tells the guy, run. So they run, and the other guy gets shot. But he's not dead. So anyway, the story goes on from there, and it's really quite interesting. But there's
I'm going to say this, if you're dealing with hunters, and if you're just the average robber, you are SOL.
Exactly.
Because they'll be able to shoot better than you.
Yeah, and I mean, this guy, he's at one point he's at a Legion meeting and stuff. Okay, you don't want to mess with this guy. Sure, he's old and
he's
decrepit.
been in the army or whatever too.
Yeah. So anyway, he's the robbers say, come, give us the money, or you don't want your friend to get hurt anymore. Well, this guy's maybe kind of stupid, but he's not that stupid.
No, he's
he'd get killed anyway. Like, they don't have masks on or anything. They'd only known the identity of the two people, and one of them's dead, so they really, if that other person, then nobody knows who the rest of the robbers are. So they're going to give up this other hunter. They won't, right? So this, our hero of the story, he just shoots the hunter. And he's like, okay, there's the answer to your question. I know you're not going to keep him alive, or suspect as much, and you're not getting your money back. So anyway, I'm giving a lot of this story away, but I got to that point because I wanted to tell you the big flaw that I saw in this. And no matter how you look at it, this guy, he's a hunter, he has the clear shot, he takes out the hunter that he knows, one shot, no problem. The other the robbers are all standing around there, right around the guy. He doesn't shoot them. Why? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. And things go worse from there because he didn't, right? Like, it doesn't. So that's why this got underneath rare objects, because that didn't make sense. I was really getting into this movie, and then that happened, and from there on, I'm like, who cares, right? Because it didn't make any sense that he didn't. He could have very easily. It would have made the movie shorter, I guess. They would have had to think of something else to do. But that was dumb. Malignant. This is a terrible twin story. And I guess I just gave away what's going on with this story, but who cares? You see, it's not near the top. This is something you might put on if you have absolutely nothing else to watch or do. So, terrible twin story. It's a horror movie. What do you want? Sleepless Unrest. Well, you want a horror movie. If you're going to watch a horror movie, that's what you're going for. So, the real Conjuring home, the world-famous haunted house that inspired the Conjuring films, has recently been sold and now open to the paranormal investigation. It is so bad.
I heard the start of it. It was bad.
Wow.
Well, yeah.
Okay, go on with JFK then. I'm done.
Okay.
First two were worth watching.
So I was reviewing a movie a while back, ran out of tape or whatever. Battery.
Yeah.
And I'd gotten to the point, I believe, where I was talking about working at the cop shop here in Lethbridge. And how I couldn't get inside. My first day of work, no one knew me there. They weren't going to let me inside.
Yeah. Well, you talked about that. You got that.
I'm just reviewing.
Okay. And so basically you were saying, well, you might think, okay, well, there's some things that are a conspiracy with the JFK thing or whatever, and it's just people are thinking things that didn't happen or whatever. But with just the fact that Lee Harvey Oswald was shot in the police station, you know there's a conspiracy there. At least
It's
with the
conspiracy.
Dallas
Fact.
police.
Someone involved with the police.
Mm-hmm.
And they show where they say, oh, there was a 4-minute window of opportunity. Jack Ruby just happened to be kind of like right next door to the Dallas police station. He was delivering some money by, he was wiring some money to some, I think, Fort Worth, one of his employees.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it's set up. Now the way they were showing it was they're roughly on the same street. They're on the same street. Dallas police station, and I think it was the Western Union station. I don't know if they were right next to each other, but on the same street. And they're going, wow, like Jack Ruby could not have planned it. There's something like Lee Harvey Oswald was supposed to be transferred around 10. And I don't know if it was 11 o'clock or something like that when the transfer was started.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it was set up to make it look like a crime of passion.
Mm-hmm.
So, they were saying, or there's a movie that was trying to dismiss everything, kind of like.
I don't believe that has any bones in it, just so you know.
Anyway, I'm not going to be mucking through it without a knife or whatever.
I expect great things from a cut of fish that's $27.
Anyway, just woke up kind of sort of. So they were saying, why would Jack Ruby plan this sort of thing? There was the death penalty for murder, and it just doesn't make sense that he'd whack Harvey Oswald or stuff like that. And there would be kind of a faint hope clause if it were a crime of passion, as opposed to the crime of killing Lee Harvey Oswald, as opposed to a planned one. Personally, I don't think there should be a difference, but that's the way laws tend to be interpreted. And they've been that way in some places.
This is the DVD that James is talking about right now.
I'll just take it. Oh, okay. You got caught in the doorway there.
I did.
Yeah, truth is the only client. And I'll preface it as I did before. This is a defense of the Warren Commission, the cover-up. Okay, the commission that was meant to resolve, theoretically, but to cover up who did what when it came to John F. Kennedy's assassination. And they kind of started off, more or less, by saying, look who's on the commission. Please do. They're saying please do, too. And they say, oh, this person's a judge, that person's a politician. Hale Boggs, for example, I think he came from Louisiana. Jerry Ford from Michigan, later vice president and president of the United States. And the one that really gets me is former head of the CIA, Allen Dulles, younger brother of John Foster Dulles, who was Secretary of State for much of Eisenhower's administration. Then he died. He didn't die of embarrassment, but what the heck. Anyway, so what do all those three kinds of folks have in common? I'm repeating it, but I'll be repeating it until the day I die. Spies, lawyers, because judges, I'd like to think every one of them were lawyers at some point in time. And we still are lawyers. Judges, lawyers, politicians. What do they have in common? Well, one thing that stands out, one salient feature, is they're all liars. Okay? All liars. Now, just to say that and rest my case would be a informal logical fallacy or a informal fallacy. It's an ad hominem argument. You know, they've still got their arguments and they have to be dealt with. But it should make you not cynical, but suspicious. More than suspicious, skeptical. In other words, that's a motivation. It's not an argument. So, conspiracy fact. Jack Ruby gets into the Dallas police station. Someone had to have let him in. Just on a regular day of business, slow day of business, I'm pretty sure it was. Kind of like the beginning of January, and all the falderall around January the 1st and drunken driving, that would have been over. It would have been a snoozy day at the Lethbridge police station. I wasn't getting in. You couldn't find, I don't think, a less snoozy day or sequence of days following in Dallas, following in the police station, following JFK's assassination. You'd think the security would have been as tight as a drum. Why? Because Lee Harvey Oswald was being held there in the police station. Now, there would have been, the vast majority of people in Dallas would have been only too willing to clap Lee Harvey Oswald on the back for having done the average person in Dallas what would have been seen as a favor. But, you know, in a democracy, there are always people who go against the flow. And there would have been, for example, black people in Dallas that wouldn't have been thrilled about JFK getting whacked. There would have been some poor whites who wouldn't have been thrilled. There would have been some people who would have come from away, from the north of the United States, who wouldn't have been thrilled. And who might have been motivated enough to take out the putative assassin of JFK. See how that is? So the Dallas police should have been running extra tough security. No one gets in, no one gets out. And you know, every day it's documented. These idiots actually show camera footage. Friday night, the assassination occurred around noon. I think it was 12:30. And JFK was declared dead half an hour later, 1 o'clock Dallas time. That evening, Jack Ruby was in the Dallas police station. Next day, there is a reporter, presumably a fairly trustworthy guy, although reporters do lie, a reporter who knew Jack Ruby, who said he saw Jack Ruby in the Dallas police station. Fact is, I think it is he who said that Jack Ruby poked his head into the part of the Dallas police station, so the floor, he was on the floor, but he poked his head into the place where they were investigating, the place that was devoted or set aside for robberies and homicides. It wasn't just in the police station, he was in the area where, at the very least, Lee Harvey, I don't think he was being held necessarily there, but he could have been being questioned. That's on Saturday. Sunday is when, that's on cameras. There are presumably millions of people who saw that on camera. That's Jack Ruby whacking Lee Harvey Oswald. Live. I don't think it was in color. 3 days in a row. At a minimum, at least once a day. They were letting guy in. It wasn't just when and these guys don't deal with that. Oh, they show. they're panning around at this press conference or something like that. I don't know what exactly it was. Friday night, and they're panning. There's Jack Ruby, and they're not giving you the background to it. The police don't let people wander around their police stations. So there's one guy that they in particular single out for opprobrium. Look that up in your funking wagnalls. Opprobrium. And yes, I know it's funkin' wagnalls, just in case you are looking for someone to a witch hunt or something like that. You'll do that. That kind of got me a little upset. Yeah, they single out James Hosty, who was a member of the FBI back then, and he was, by all accounts, responsible for keeping track of Lee Harvey Oswald. And apparently, Oswald left a note with the FBI saying he was going to, I believe, blow up the FBI station, the police station, blow up some sort of building. And James Hosty hadn't alerted the officials as to the contents of that note before the assassination. After the assassination, he burned the note. And they're saying, they single him out for opprobrium. They say, well, of course they're assuming, that's an assumption, not a decent conclusion, that Lee Harvey Oswald was the killer, the sole killer. So if, according to their unreasoned reasoning, if Hosty had blown the whistle on Lee Harvey Oswald, then Oswald would have been in jail. Well, I don't think he delivered the note in person. Guess what? Anyone could have delivered that note and then claimed it was Lee Harvey Oswald. It's just an attempt to make him look guilty before the fact, after he's been arrested for the assassination of Kennedy. Of course, they don't mention that possibility. And why would have James Hosty have destroyed that note after the assassination? He did it on orders. He did it on orders. He would have been told, and the orders probably, if we check the chain of command, would have gone to not just J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, but J. Edgar Hoover's boss, who was still the Attorney General, an appointee of John F. Kennedy. Oh, who was that? Robert F. Kennedy. Robert? Is it F. Kennedy? Anyway, Robert Kennedy. So, James Hosty was keeping track of Lee Harvey Oswald. In what way? They suggest, it's because Lee Harvey Oswald was a defector to the Soviet Union. He'd been a Marine, and he defected several years before to the Soviet Union. I should have said defected. Because let's look at his profile. A Marine. How many Marines would have been let into the Marines without being checked to see if he was sympathetic towards the communists? Because according to the profile that